Hi and welcome to Hospitality Huddles. I'm Scot Turner and each episode we'll be uncovering the industry's biggest challenges and serving up the solutions to help overcome them. We're bringing together some of the best thought leaders in the industry and finding some of the most creative minds shaping the future of hospitality from all around the world. They're going to share insights tackling the pain points operators just like you face every day. Hospitality Huddles is more than a podcast, it's a community of passionate individuals who appreciate the art and science of hospitality and want to help answer the difficult questions. If you like the show, one of the best ways to support us is to hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It's only going to take a couple of minutes and it really does make the difference. So let's get on with today's episode, and all that's left to say is welcome to Hospitality Huddles, where hospitality meets conversation, one huddle at a time. Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of Hospitality Huddles, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Till Schäfer, who we met on LinkedIn when we were engaging on a post that I did about sustainability in hotels, and I'm really excited to have a conversation about that. So Till, thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
You're welcome, Scott. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we always start the every episode and ask people, what does hospitality mean to you? So I'd love to hear your opinion and your thoughts on this one.
I'd say, to keep it short, I just would say that to make people feel like they're at home, take care of them, give them a good time. I mean, I'm now working in the leisure hospitality. So from that context, it's for me like our company slogan is "Welcome Home." Just give people a good time, allow them to switch off and be themselves and immerse themselves in the experience and in the moment, right? I think that's the way I would describe it from my current perspective.
That's a fantastic, and I think it's a really nice. I've not of the people I've interviewed, I've never had that welcome home piece, but it really is. It really is a nice. It made me smile as soon as you say it. So it's a really nice ethos to carry through. And for people who maybe have not met you before or not seen you on LinkedIn, could you share a bit about you and your experience and kind of what's taking you to the position you're in today?
Yeah. Look, I've been working in hospitality for about 30 years now. Started off in Germany. I did kind of a classic apprenticeship, really growing myself through the ranks in the hotel, but then quickly moved into finance. And then in the finance role, moved around a bit, held several positions in luxury hotels in Germany. And then at a later point in time, I think that was in 2012, we moved to Switzerland, spent 2.5 years there with Kempinski. That was very interesting. It was the first seasonal hotel I worked in. And from there, we moved on, spent 5 years in the Middle East and Africa. Also for Kempinski, that was super interesting. Really work in a different culture, see a lot of different places, different people. It was really, really cool. Great experience. I can only recommend to anyone who has the opportunity in our industry to move around and see different cultures. Just do it. Go for it. It's super exciting. And then a couple of years ago, I think it's 4 years now, we decided to come back to Europe and I joined Falkensteiner. Still in a finance position. So I've always been in the finance department, but I feel that I always try to stay very close to operations, because I truly believe if you want to achieve something, if you want to support the people in operation to do a better job, to allow a hotel to deliver greater profitability and return to the owners, you simply need to understand the business, right? Number crunching is one thing, but there is always a truth behind the number, and you just need to understand the context. And that's what I always try to do. And I still love what I do. It's a fantastic industry, great people in here, great places you see. It's fun. Yeah. It's stressful at times, but I assume that's in every other industry, but it's just fun. I really love the business.
Yeah, it really is a great place to be, and it's funny when I looked at your background. I think I was in Dubai the same time, 2015 to 2019, late 2019 as well. So we maybe have crossed paths at some point. But I think
Possibly.
what I think is really nice about what you just said there is, some of the best finance people I've worked with have been the ones who are on a understanding with operations, and there's a real communication between the two. And I think with today's market, and we'll probably get into this a little bit further in the chat, but especially with margins becoming so tight, finance have a really critical role in that whole development piece of managers coming through to help them better
Yes.
understand where those marginal gains are, aren't they? So it's really important, that relationship. How have you found it? I guess as the landscape has changed slightly and those margins have got a little tighter in terms of that cooperation.
Look, I think it's absolutely true what you say, but it has always been true. And I believe
Yeah,
as what I kept saying to my people in the finance departments is that first of all, we should understand that we work in a service industry and we basically are in the back office. Yes, fair enough, but we are here, so to say, to service the people at the front and to service the decision makers. And this is the way for me to approach it. So
yeah,
we produce numbers. We need to present numbers in a way that someone who doesn't deal with them that much can easily understand and comprehend them. And I think these days, today, when you look at what artificial intelligence is able to do and what kind of reporting systems you have in place, or you can also create and custom yourself, there's huge potential in really preparing numbers in a different way and different format to help people understand. Um, so that's the one thing. You need to deliver information that someone can make an educated decision based on. You need to help them to make that decision. You're not the one who to make the decision, right? You should support in coming to that conclusion and that decision. And I believe it's extremely important to understand, like you said, operations, and also to build rapport and relationship. Yeah, right.
mm,
We are a people business, and you need to deal with the people, and you need to convince people also, right? At least to listen to you.
yeah,
Uh, forcing someone to do something they don't believe in is a short-term gain. It's going to work for a couple of weeks, and then the idea is going to die again. Yeah, like I keep saying, you need to get the people to want to do what you want to do or you want them to do, right? And then you don't have to do these control mechanisms anymore, or not that regular, because if someone wants what you want, they're going to do it. You don't have to force them, you don't have to control. And that's important for me and for the people. It's really important for me that the people that work for me understand that and
mm,
act in a certain way, right? It's a collaborative approach. And yes, I mean, it has become even more important to really deep dive into the numbers. And it's possible, like I said, when you look at the systems we have today. I just recently had a conversation with one of the controllers in our company. I said, look, there might have been times 10 years ago when, as a controller, you prepared figures at the end of the month, and then once a month we had a discussion about the numbers. But today this is different. Yeah, I mean, I could now switch screen and I can look up the food purchases of a hotel live, real time. Yeah,
mm,
as per like an hour ago, and I can do this for all hotels, yeah, of our chain. So
yep,
controlling our finance department is more a daily task in the meantime, and not the monthly reporting. You need to
mm,
support the people on a daily basis and in way more detail on where can they find a gain, where might they be able to do something different. But it involves two things. You need to look into the number, and you need to be on the floor from time to time to understand what's happening.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting point. It's one thing that I think now, because information is so readily available, that whole wait until the end of next month to reflect has
Yes.
shifted to being much more proactive, because you live in the moment and you can get to those things, those little action points quicker, can't you? So it's a really good point
Yes,
to raise.
absolutely. Yeah. When I speak to our director of controlling, I keep saying, look, there shouldn't be a surprise at the end of the month and you coming to my office and telling me, Till, we really, it didn't work out, cost of sales is out of control, because you can see those things on a daily basis. I mean, we monitor, we're talking sustainability later. We are monitoring so many things, all of the utility consumption, so many consumables we can see on a daily basis. At the end of the month, there, to be frank, there rarely isn't a surprise anymore. The only thing we really don't know is the top line, because it's becoming, the pickup is so short term in the meantime that I don't even know if we're going to do good business end of March over Easter or not. This is the only surprise that's left in the P&L, so to say.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point to raise, and we see it a lot in other hotels where that might not be as proactive, and then you visit the ones that are, and those managers are really much more agile on the floor. So, for people who might not have heard of the group before, can you share a little bit more about how the group's made up? Obviously the mix of resorts and some of the glamping and camping sites, and how it
Yes.
all works within.
Yeah, we like to describe Falkensteiner as a 360-degree tourism company, because we start with developing hotels from the greenfield. So we build hotels, we develop them, we do consultancy, and then we operate them. And at a later point, we might either spin them off or continue the operation from our side. The company has deliberately made a move like 4 years ago when I joined, to really focus on leisure hospitality. So we have a couple of city hotels left, but not that many, and not big ones. We are, so to say, purely focused on leisure hotels and resorts. And we have around 25 leisure hotels and 3 campings. And that's basically the business from an operational perspective.
Fantastic.
And we are in Europe. I didn't mention where we are. So the majority of the hotels is in Austria, in Italy, and in Croatia. That's
Yeah,
where
and some
the majority of the
and
hotels and campings is located.
yeah, and some beautiful hotels as well. And I found it really interesting when I was researching the group before we spoke about how you've got the different kind of categories for the different reasons people would go on leisure. So there's the
Yes.
family resorts, there's the more of like the adult relaxation resorts. It's a really nice makeup of how the hotels are very focused on the target market.
Yes, I think marketing has done a fine job here. I mean, you can go to the website and look it up, and you can say, "Oh, I like to be active," and then you're going to get a recommendation. Okay, these are the 5 hotels that we would recommend to you. Or I want to be at the beach, or I would like to relax, or I'm very interested in culinary, and then pick your top culinary hotels.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. Now, why I reached out to you to do an episode when we were chatting back and forth on LinkedIn was I thought it was really refreshing that a finance um, leader in the industry would be talking so passionately about sustainability, because often it comes at a cost, and those things have to be factored in. Why is sustainability such a focus for you, and I guess similarly for the group? Because it's really refreshing to see someone from finance being so passionate.
Well, look, I think there are different drivers for it. From a company perspective, we are a European hotel company, and we have a size that as of next year, we simply have to follow the ESG and EU taxonomy rules and do the reporting. That's number one.
Mhm.
So we are, so to say, forced, at least in terms of measuring and reporting, to do our job. There is no way around. That might well be different for hotel companies in other parts of the world.
Mhm.
But second of all, I also don't see that much the tension, right? A lot of people are going to tell you, oh, sustainability is going to mean huge cost. Yeah. And yes, there is some cost attached to it. From the reporting side, definitely. But then there's also a lot of benefit on the other side of the equation. And I think you also need to look at it long term, right? I mean, the investments you do now, they will very, very well pay off in the future. I mean, what we see over and over again in the industry, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen to us too, is that a hotel, a resort is going to be developed, and there are great ideas flying around in the beginning, and then the value engineering starts. Yeah, and when the value engineering starts, people don't think anymore about the long-term effects of what they are engineering there, and then you might end up with a hotel where your operation cost is just going to be higher than you anticipated, and then you're going to pay the price in the future. Yeah. And also sustainability means, or being sustainable means, to consume less, and less consumption is going to be less cost. Yeah. That doesn't always mean that you're going to make a saving, because you might well also replace certain consumables with other more environmental friendly consumables, which are more expensive. But from what I see, from what we do so far, I believe there are a lot of examples where we actually save money with being more sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I work with a hotel here in London, an independent hotel, and they have a real focus of getting to net carbon by, I think it's 2030. And some of the elements that they've done has really made them have to sit as a group and really start being creative and looking at what elements can improve guest expectations, which ones might compromise. So how do they get around that? And it really does. What I see of them when they meet and they talk about initiatives, it really gets their leadership team to really start thinking outside the box sometimes about how they can adopt some of those principles in. And I think it's really nice to see that that is coming to the agenda. I'm sure you've seen that with some of your leaders as well.
Yes, and look, it's a. I've been thinking about it, and it's a process, right? Like with everything else, it, it's it's change, right? And I guess
Yeah,
we all know change management usually is a headache, and it just takes time. And it's the same with becoming sustainable, right? We have to ingrain it into the culture, and that's not going to happen from yesterday to tomorrow. We have to be role models, right? I mean, we need to pave the way, and we need to. I took a note and I said you have to repeat, yeah, and only then things start to become a habit. Yeah, and when
yeah,
things start to become a habit, then people will also have a different view, and they will question themselves, and they will
yeah,
question and challenge the organization. And we see that it's a process, and there are initiatives that we have taken centrally, which take a lot of energy and a lot of time to convince people in the field
mm,
that it could be a good idea. Yeah? I'm not saying that we always have the greatest ideas and everything works out, but like with everything else, we need to be willing to take a risk. And
yeah.
sometimes we need to invest some money and take a risk, and then we'll see if it works out. And hopefully, more often than not, it's going to work out, but there is failure along the way. But we keep learning from it. And the
Yeah.
main goal is not to repeat the same mistake again and again and again.
And I guess if we look at the modern traveler and the modern guest, do you think that there's more of a lean now where people are making decisions to stay with groups because of planet conscious activities or sustainability? And do you think in another way, do you think people are becoming a lot more understanding when they go to hotels and kind of sustainable principles and initiatives are in place as well?
Hmm. Yes and no. I think you need to look at the different generations or age brackets and income brackets that are there.
Yeah.
Because I'd say if you do a survey and ask someone if he or she is more likely to book a sustainable friendly hotel over a sustainable unfriendly hotel, the answer is always going to be yes. But as soon as they're going to receive the offer for the next summer vacation and the environmental friendly hotel is 30% more expensive than the other product, the situation is going to change. So
Yeah.
I believe my generation will more likely be the one possibly to choose the cheaper one.
Hmm.
Younger people are possibly different, but maybe they are not the ones that are purchasing at the high end because they don't have this disposable income yet. So I think this is going to develop. I don't think we're yet here. But getting back to what I said earlier, it takes time to change the culture. It just takes time to change the things. And if you don't start now, you're not going to be ready when more and more
Yeah.
people start to become more conscious for the subject.
For sure. And I think one of the other things that I've notice when I speak to different hotel groups as well around this subject is it's still quite new, isn't it, to hoteliers and hotel groups. So we're still in that learning phase of understanding where the tolerance is with some of these practices and where's worth investing, where's not worth investing. And we were speaking off air, and you brought up a great example about kind of pool temperatures, and and it'd be great to hear from that because sometimes the most obvious isn't always the right thing for the guest and vice versa. Could you talk a little bit more about that and just explain? Because
Yeah,
it's a great
look,
example.
yeah. I think it's really a nice example, and I have to say we learned it the hard way, and we learned it the hard way during Corona, right? After we reopened the hotels after Corona, and then the electricity prices, also in the context of what's happening in the Ukraine, peaked. Right? I said, okay, guys, we need to reduce consumption. Right? The price is exploding. We need to reduce consumption. Okay, now when you look at the pool, okay, first of all, you think, okay, do we need to have an outside pool heated to 35 degrees? Put it down to 32. And we realized it simply doesn't work. The guest pays the price for an experience, and they demand that experience. So there we got a lot of pushback from customers saying, we are not satisfied with the pool temperature, specifically, explicitly the pool temperature anymore. Yeah, this is a wellness hotel. The pool should have, I don't know how many degrees, but it's colder than it used to be, and we are not happy with that. And we earned negative reviews for that.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, we realized when we shorten opening times, so for example, compared to reducing the temperature in the pool, saying, okay, the outside sauna is not going to be open 12 hours anymore a day, but 6 to 8 hours, that seemed to be completely acceptable for the people. So we really started to rethink and saying, look, okay, in the past we just switched on the sauna at 8 o'clock in the morning and it ran through until 10 p.m., no matter how many people have been in there. And there we tried and started to be more conscious and say, okay, let's be fair. If there's only one guest in there between 8 and noon, let's close it in the morning, yeah, and save that little piece of energy. But this way, we also approached the different things, right? I mentioned earlier, be on the floor. And I said to the GMs in the hotels, be on the floor in the morning and take a look into the kitchen at 7 p.m. What's happening? And you can imagine what's happening. The first person comes in the morning who runs the kitchen, and they were going to turn on all equipment, no matter if they use it or not. Everything is going to run on full throttle as of 7 a.m. Yeah?
Yeah.
And we said, okay, look, there needs to be a procedure. We know what we need and what we don't need. So let's really look into these details and reduce consumption that way. That's not going to affect the guest, right? But then again, you need to make it a habit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really interesting one. And I think what I found really interesting about that example is certainly before I heard more examples and kind of saw what people were doing, I always thought of sustainability in things and thought it was always a really large subject, and you had to always think big to make big changes. But actually, what you're saying in some of those things is it's the little small things in around the hotel which can really add up to make a big difference. So it's start small and then move gradually towards the bigger projects as it becomes more habitual in the hotel, right?
Yes, that's true. But what we also not learned, I think we knew before, unless we assumed we know, is that what you don't measure doesn't exist. Right, and here I have to say, luckily, at Falkensteiner, from the very beginning, from the very early days, we've installed a huge amount of sub meters when we talk utility consumption. No matter if it's water, if it's electricity or heating, we have very good metering in the hotels, down to really very granular level. So we can, and we have a monitoring system behind it. So again, I'm sitting in my office in Vienna, and I could now tell you how much electricity the air condition of our hotel at the Wörthersee in the banqueting department consumed the last 15 minutes. I'm not going to do that. There's no point for me in doing that. But we have controllers to look after that, and we have engineers to look after that. So when it came to when the energy prices spiked, and we said, okay, we need to have another look, right? We were able to really identify a lot of small consumers in the hotel. And I must say, we already learned that earlier, because when we closed the hotel during Corona, we could see where there was still consumption where it shouldn't have been. So the technicians, they really learned to understand, okay, I have to press this button, I have to put this button, and then the consumption is going to go down. And this is what we keep doing on a constant basis, right? And so you learn that there's this little bit of, there's an air condition still running at the other end of the building. We need to switch it off. That's not
Yeah.
much, but it's a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you keep on collecting, and then the things keep on piling and ending up, and then you really get to a saving. And saying that when we talk utility, I was really surprised, right? I mean, when I think it was 2 years ago, we sat down, we had a call with all of the chief engineers, and then we said, look, we want you to reduce energy consumption in the hotel from today to tomorrow by 20%. And they all laughed at us. They said, that's impossible. You can't. Maybe 3, 4, 5%. And at the end of the day, we ended up on average with 15% less electricity consumption overall in the hotels, which is amazing. 15%. I mean, that's not only, that's a lot of carbon, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's
Especially then when you
possible.
times it over 20. And I think, back to what you were saying right at the start, and you touched on a point that I truly believe in as well, which is how to make data accessible and easily digestible for people. Because I've been in hotels before, and I remember finance leaders come in and saying we need to turn the lights off on a night. And as an operator, you kind of like, it's really far down on your list. You don't see the impact directly, but when you present that data and show the specifics and can drill down, it really helps make that achievable as well, doesn't it? To
Yes.
find that 15%.
Yes, but I'd really like to tell you a different story, which I find very interesting, and that's nothing finance could have ever achieved. That came actually from
Yep.
our technical departments. So what I learned, or what I understand, at least for the hotels that we operate, is that 35% of your electricity consumption just comes from the ventilation. I'm not talking air condition; it's just
Mhm.
ventilation in the building. So 35% of your electricity consumption is just there when you open the door. While at the same time, my engineers will tell me, as soon as you open the door, 80% of the consumption is going to be there, and only the last 20% is subject to your occupancy. But
Yep.
get back to the 35%. What I learned here is that we used to run all of the ventilation systems at 100% level, because that was the guidance in the manual from the manufacturer. And if you didn't keep up to the guidance in the manual, you lost the warranty.
Mhm.
But the technician said there is absolutely no need to run the system on 100% all the time, especially if the hotel is only on 20 or 30% occupancy. You can turn it down to 40, 50%, but we can't do it because we're going to lose warranty on the system. So we went back to the manufacturers and we worked with them, and we really worked hard with them to reduce the guidance in the manual. And then some of them changed the manual, which allowed us to run the system in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great story. Really great story. That's what
Truly, I
was
was amazed. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think about the times as well. It's I'll give a micro example very similar to that. We were doing a standardized kitchen design for a hotel group, and we were looking at the way we can get the kitchen as sustainable as possible. We were looking at equipment such as salamanders that switched off as soon as you pushed it back up and didn't stay on all day.
Yeah.
And it's a very micro level of what you're saying in ventilation, but there is
Yes.
ways there that you can adapt the equipment to be able to help. I think if we move on to the next subject, which I think it's going to be fascinating. Running a group of resort hotels, one of the things I always think about in resort hotels is breakfast. Going downstairs, huge breakfast, a station for everything, huge buffets. But with that, obviously, comes a lot of waste. Getting levels right, understanding occupancy
Yes.
and volume and usage and etc.
Yes.
This must be a real challenge for you in the group when it comes to breakfast being a resort led group.
Yes. And for us, it's even more important because we not only talk breakfast, we have a couple of full board and all inclusive resorts, which for us means we talk breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yes, it's very important for us. And again, here we started early to measure because what you don't measure doesn't exist. So we have systems in place to measure as well the wastage that comes back from the restaurant and from the buffet,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the wastage that is being produced in kitchen, right? When you
Yeah.
rest of the vegetables or whatever is left over. So we put systems in place and we split it up, like I said, right? And it works
Yeah.
with AI. It's basically it's a camera on top of the waste bin, right, for the kitchen waste. It has been programmed, but it keeps on learning and it can identify whatever goes into the waste bin. So, and there's a couple of advantages to it, right? First of all, the chef really gets to see, and I think sometimes people just need to see a number, need to see and understand. They see what is actually really being wasted on a daily, weekly, monthly basis out of their kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, and I think at the same time, it also has an effect on the line staff in the kitchen because they know that something now is being measured, and something being measured might mean that there could be a repercussion or a question or a feedback at a later stage why it is so much and why it's not so much. So I believe it's always difficult to say, right? Because it's difficult to pin something down to this one reason. But I think it helps also to keep the stuff in the kitchen alert to don't try not to waste things, right?
Yeah.
Don't throw them away. Be careful on how much you order. And from a buffet perspective, it's more difficult, right? Here you need to educate the guest. That's a different ball game, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, you want to show it's like in a supermarket. At the end, on the one hand, you want a fully equipped breakfast or a fully equipped dinner buffet until the very end of the service. On the other end, this means wastage. So there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, not reinventing the wheel. You can use a full Chevy insert. You can use a half Chevy insert.
Mm.
But I think we try to learn and we try to move on and to take advantage. But still, yeah, it also involves a lot the guests, so to say, in terms of their consumption habits. One of my colleagues in the purchasing department actually had an interesting idea. We didn't have the guts to pursue it yet, although I believe at some point in time we might do. He said, "Look, you actually need to take this report and this display and not put it in the chef's office, but you need to put it in the lobby. You need to tell the guest." You need to show them this
Yeah.
is how much food we put in the waste bin yesterday, and then possibly show a trend and say, thank you so much, yeah, dear guest. You helped us to be more environment friendly by 10% since your arrival, because since you are here, we are wasting
Mm.
less food. Because I
Yeah.
think people can't imagine how much goes into the bin. It's mind blowing. Yeah?
I was going to ask actually when you were talking about waste, does the machine or do you track wastage from maybe consumption that hasn't been used on the buffets versus what comes back off the guest plate? Because they're two different things. One is, I guess, is there items being taken at all? The other one is over, greedy minds and eyes too big for the belly type situation.
Yes, we do that because look, we differentiate, right? We look at what comes back from the guest plate and then what is being wasted,
Yeah,
so to say, in the kitchen. And we look at what has been wasted in the kitchen in terms of what has been peeled off and cut off, plus what has
yeah,
been put on top too much onto the
yeah,
buffet. In a really absolutely perfect world, you would have three machines.
yeah.
And
And split it down because that I guess that's the real. But it's true. I mean, I stayed at a hotel in Amsterdam, and they had in the shower they had a reader that said how much water was being consumed, and I was having a shower and I was looking at this thing just notching up and up and up as I was using it and thinking, oh, I better hurry up and get out here because I'm wasting water. So it
yeah,
is a
but
really
you
good
see, that's
mentality,
it,
isn't it?
right?
Mm,
Yes, it is,
yeah,
right? You could put a meter which is first green, then turns yellow and red, right? And
yeah,
everyone is
yeah.
going to try to get out of the shower before it turns red at least.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. I mean, it's that
interesting.
whole It's that whole mentality, isn't it? About it's like we've done it for years, haven't we? But if you don't want the towels changed, don't put them in the bath, and put them in the bath if you do, and those little bits. But showing people the impact of what that extra muffin that you didn't really want,
Yes,
that you might have half eaten,
that's
could have a huge impact.
yes, I'm fully with you. It's like the idea of the purchasing guy on putting the display into the lobby. I like it,
Yeah,
right? I'm not
yeah,
sure if,
yeah,
if some guest might be upset about it, but
yeah.
yes, you need to measure and you need to make things visible, and then well, possibly they're going to change.
And how much responsibility um, does procurement have when it comes to sustainability? You're thinking about, planet-friendly items that might go in bedrooms. Thinking about, do you go local, non-local? How much do you go with GPO versus going to the guy down the road? It's a big part to play, isn't it? It must be a lot of pressure on them. And how do you manage that within the group?
Yes, it's a lot pressure. It's a lot of pressure on the purchasing department. We try to buy eco-friendly. We try to keep the variety of products and things we use to a minimum, right? So when
Right.
you look at our portfolio, you could say we have some 3-star hotels, we have some 4-star hotels, we have some 5-star hotels, we have campings. And I believe in the good old times, someone might have said, okay, there is a green shampoo bottle for the 3-star hotels, and there's a larger one for the 4-star hotels, and there's an even nicer one for the 5-star. And these are things we don't do anymore. Yeah? It needs to be an eco-friendly product, and it's going to be the same product throughout the entire portfolio because, first of all, it's just cheaper. That's also true. Yeah, but it's also more environmental friendly to just go with this one product line, right? And I believe you also need to think about and try out again how much amenities do you need in a bathroom. Yeah, how much things do you have to put there? And we went away, and I assume other hotel chains have done the same. In the past, you went into a 5-star bathrooms, and there were so many things you would never touch and never need. But then, still, from time to time, there would have been throwaway because 20 people touched it, put it back. And we
Yep.
don't do this anymore. We said, okay, what are the real essentials that as a guest you would want to have in the room? Yeah, and everything else we have a stock. Yeah, we have a stock for
Mm.
that. And if you need it,
Yep.
just call the concierge, just call front office, and we're going to bring you a piece. But it
Yep.
means we don't need 50,000 pieces of this anymore. We reduce this to 5,000 pieces because it's just there
Mm.
upon request, right?
Yep.
And and when you get to, I think you referred to exchanging the bed linen, right, where you opted
Mm.
in and opted out.
Mm.
I mean, for us, it's clear we changed this from opt-in to opt-out, right? In the past, you had put a sign and say, "I don't want to," and now you have to put a sign and say, "I want to." Otherwise,
Mm.
we're going to replace the bed linen every 3 days, every 4 days, depending on the hotel, rather than every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, it's that change of mindset, isn't it, and how it reads. And I think, I truly believe. I think that the way hotels are going, hospitality is going, the way I think the travelers going is I think there's going to be a lower base, like you were saying about only the essential amenities, and then it's going to become a lot more about choice and personalization, and then it's down to the
Yes,
hotel then to go, if Mr. Smith wants an extra set of amenities next time he stays, we'll put the amenities in the room, and then it becomes super personal, and you can use that as back to, unreasonable hospitality. It's all those little moments then that you can use to actually enhance the guest experience next time.
yes. If you're referring to the book, I love it. Yeah, it's just amazing how they did it and what they did. It's
Yeah, it's
very
yeah,
inspiring.
it's fascinating, isn't it? And it's amazing how many, podcasts I listen to or industry people talk and bring that book up. And it's just, I think it's been a really good book at a really great time coming out of COVID for us all to just read the book and go, actually, we're in hospitality to create amazing moments for guests, and what are we
Yes,
all doing today? And in a weird subconscious way, I feel like it's holding us all accountable a bit more now, by that being
yes.
released. So, um, Till, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time. I value your time. I know you're a busy guy, and there's been some fantastic takeaways for people. If there's some people there now that are struggling a little bit or have listened to some of the great things that are there and want to just reach out to you and get your advice and experience, what's the best way for them to reach you? And yeah, hopefully they'll get in touch.
Yeah, I think the best way to reach me is just check out my profile on LinkedIn and drop me a note or connect. I think that's the easiest way, to be frank. And I'm there. I'm happy to speak about it and give recommendations if possible. I'm really passionate about it.
No, no, I can tell, and it was really the way you wrote the comment, and it was I've got to talk to Till about this because I just, as I said, I find it really refreshing that it's being driven down from a finance perspective as well, because I think sometimes that has such a big impact when it's a department that maybe you'd expect to have the opposite view that really embraces it and finds solutions. I think it's a credit to you, it's a credit to the group, and I'm excited to see more of how you implement these things in, because I think it's leading a lot of people else in the industry. So I really respect you, and thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Hospitality Huddles. I really hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you did, please leave a review wherever you might listen to your podcasts. It really helps the show, and it's only going to take a couple of minutes. If you don't want to miss a future episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get it into your feed as soon as each episode is released. Hospitality Huddles is brought to you by Auden Hospitality, helping hoteliers to think differently to create F&B outlets that their guests will love. Learn more about how we help hotel operations every single day by visiting our website at audenhospitality.com. This has been Hospitality Huddles, where hospitality meets conversation, one huddle at a time. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.